Hello everybody, it's September 23rd, 2022. We're going to take a look at Bitcoin's action over the past week. First, we're going to look at what I said on Monday. Bitcoin had eliminated most of the scenarios and basically was telling us that we were in the blue scenario. That's from a video at this point probably 2 weeks back, two and a half, something like that. And that, basically it was just going to not give us a clear structure and just keep pressing down even to an equal, meaning 17.7 or slightly lower low. But the lack of bouncing meant the bears would probably get exhausted. So that's still the case. We really don't have a clear structure for bears that signals a break below 15.7, which for me is a line in the sand. We don't have a setup right now telling me that is to be expected. So I do still expect that we will find a bottom in that sort of 16-17 area. So on Monday, the bulls had a potential path upwards, but they needed to hold it above 19 for it to stay possible. And obviously, they have failed that during the course of the week. We got down as low as about 18.2, and so therefore, the expectation is to get down to that new low. So the first bearish scenario here was that we break 18.9 and proceed down to that 16-17K area. As long as we're above 15.7, keeps the bulls alive in the longer term. And then the second bear scenario, of course, would be if 15.7 breaks, then we're expecting to see 12K as the next major stop before continuing in a much longer bear market. So 15.7 is honestly the level that we need to hold, and that's the level that's going to tell us either bearish for potentially years longer or bullish, going back into the bullish path. So the macro chart, I've gone over it multiple times. I still have a video, I think, pinned on here going over the macro, where we can still see 100, 130K or even higher potentially, as long as we stay above 15.7. Below that, and that pretty much is invalidated. So at this point, what I think the most likely structure is that we're doing a W, X, and Y downwards. And what I had assumed was the end of this correction, this right here, 5 of C of 4 in the macro. I thought it was over there. We got what looked like a 5-wave move off the low, but being a diagonal, it is easy to mistake a corrective structure for a 5-way structure when it's in a diagonal like that. So I don't trust diagonals because of that. And of course, now we've come down so far that that can no longer be our first wave up any longer. So I'm assuming that all of this is now moved over here. We are likely to break to a new low to kind of reset this, and then we can ignore all of that crap action, and the bulls will have a chance once again to push upwards in a new impulse, and that would be the ideal scenario. As we hold above 15.7, bulls put in a new impulse upwards, and that will prove the bottom significantly better than this action over here. So that being said, WXYs are made up of 3-wave moves. So we've got 3 waves in W there. We've got some sort of weird corrective pattern that actually looked like 5 waves, but turned out to be corrective up in an X. This is why we have stop losses, and why you always have to be on top of the action. And then what I believe is an A wave down here, a B wave up, that culminated with the Fed on Wednesday, raising interest rates again, 0.75, and then we should be moving down in the C wave of Y. And because it's a C wave, we expect to see 5 waves down. So let's zoom in just on that portion there. And when I do that, you can see also pretty clearly this is ABC, 3 waves up right there for that B wave. So I feel pretty good about this seeing lower lows basically. All right, let me just do the converse, what I don't think is happening, but the bullish path that I think is unlikely right now. This did not look like 5 waves to me. I suppose it could be, but it didn't look like it. So if we get that being a 1, that being a 2, if this can press upwards into this area, about 21K, then hold and then push up to the upper 21 area, like 21.3 to 21.7, that would be the only way I could say that we're expecting an immediate bullish outcome. Failing that, I believe the more likely scenario, and so let me delete this. Well, let me, you know what, real quick, let me put on bullish alternative. I always want to have an alternative on here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, essentially something like that. And we're going to make that red because I don't believe it. Okay, so that's the bullish alternative. If it can do something along those lines, and that could even end up with a, you know, 2 slightly lower and still go up. But as I said, looks unlikely right now. So what I'm looking at most likely now is, first off, this move, if you look at the micro, which we can do, is not impulsive downwards. So that is a good sign. That is a very good sign that the bears at best are going to do a diagonal downwards, not an impulse downwards. This is that move I'm talking about right here. Check this out. Nothing impulsive about that. That's a big old ABC. So ABC down for a first wave in an ending diagonal is how I'm viewing that portion of the chart. And so then we got a 3-wave bounce up and a second wave here a little bit earlier in the week. When was that? Yesterday. Okay, and this pretty clearly looks like 3 waves right here. And if you draw fib extension, you can just double check that it did hit minimum requirement there of that 618 for a third wave. It's shallow, but it is in fact a third wave. And so now I think we are headed down in wave 3. 3 may or may not take the shape of 5. It may be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as a diagonal in 3. It may turn into a WXY, meaning this is ABC, then we get ABC, and then ABC, like that. In fact, that's probably what it's going to do because it's been so incredibly choppy. It seems likely. But in any case, we should get some derivation of this 5-wave move down, most likely. Now that being said, I think, you know, I'm going to take some profit on shorts and, you know, maybe find some additional cash somewhere, because I am already in Bitcoin, but I am short. So if I can find some extra cash, I might throw it in down in this area here, because we're really not guaranteed to get a clear 5-wave move down. It may end up being a really fuzzy scenario where we're not exactly sure where it's going to end, but I'm pretty comfortable thinking that we are going to get at least one more low, and potentially then a bounce, and then another low after that to make it look very complete. If we can put all 5 of those waves in, that is a very complete looking C wave for that Y of 5 of the larger C of 4. And then we can finally start the next bull market up. Of course, the safest play, as always, is to wait for the bulls to actually prove themselves. And so at any point, either from this low here or from this low here, if it gives us a 5-wave impulsive move up from either of those points, I'm going to be pretty comfortable saying the bottom is in. Now, of course, the very bullish, or very bearish alternative, rather, is that instead of doing this, it ends up, you know, really extending downwards and pushing below 15.7, and that ends up breaking our longer-term bull chart. And then we have to deal with the ramifications of that, which are I try to find an exit for all of my crypto at some future bounce, because I will not have any long-term hopes for it any longer until it proves itself once again. So that's the story right now. I do believe we are much closer to the bottom than we are to, you know, continuing a bear market, but anything can happen. We got to stay on our toes. The risk reward for sure in the longer sense right now is in favor of buying. Like, this is all accumulation area. And then just being aware of that 15.7 line in the sand and dealing with that if it breaks. But, you know, risk reward is absolutely gigantic here. If you can risk, you know, you're risking at this point 17.5% loss if you were to buy right now. Obviously that is even lower if we get down here, as you're only risking like 5% at that point, for a gain of, you know, potentially 1,000%, because we could go from 16.5 all the way up to 165. That would be reasonable. So anyway, risk reward is very much in favor of longer term holding. And then let's just look one last thing here. Just want to go over fibs for diagonals. If we start from the top here, draw it from 1 to what I'm assuming is 2, then we're looking for about the 1, 2, 3, 6 for that third wave. So 17.3 looks like a good target for wave 3, and then we'll bounce up potentially all the way up to about 18.4 or so at the 618, and then we'll head down one more time to about 16.7 is the 1.618 extension. Very good target for that fifth wave. Now, of course, it can truncate. It may not go that low, but basically 16.5 to 17.5, anywhere in that region, I'm going to expect a bottom to happen. But we will need to wait for the bulls to prove themselves and make sure that that is in fact the case. But that's what I'm expecting to happen. It has been holding up, you know, kind of well, which is weird. Like, and also, P.S. this diagonal is just assuming what's going to happen. It's going to change when that 3 actually goes in. You know, when that 3 actually happens, then the diagonal changes slightly. So the yellow diagonal is just for visualization purposes right now of what may or may not happen. But it was kind of weird today, you know, seeing the S&P 500 dump and Bitcoin realistically holding ridiculously well. And it's still kind of refusing to die at this point, but we are heading into the weekend, so definitely stay on your toes. You know, this could certainly turn into like a larger ABC, but as long as we remain below this high, the expectation is still to go down. And above that high is really, it's not great, because like I said, this doesn't look like 5 waves up to me, but it could be, I suppose. So if we get above that high and we fill in the red count, that's the only way that I'm going to consider maybe the bottom is in earlier than hitting these lower lows. All right, I think that pretty much sums it up. So we'll see what the weekend action brings, and we will go from there. We'll touch base again on Monday, and hopefully we'll have some better answers by then. I'd really love to see a weekend dump. That'd be great. A lot of times you do get that, you know, Sunday dumping down, and then we can reverse next week. That would be the ideal situation, but we'll see if we get it. All right, everybody, have a good weekend. I'll talk to you then.